I thank you very much for coming to the 2 o'clock seminar, Analogue is Groovy Again. I'm Cal Liedtke, I'm producing the event. You should be getting a copy of the Record Collector News going around. It's one of the Jim Kaplan's publication. In there also are valuable coupons for Impex records, as well as Brooks Berdan, and Port of Sound record shop, which is local here to Costa Mesa. So you can do some shopping there too. Before we begin, I just want to introduce the panelists. We have Jim Kaplan, who's the publisher of the Record Collector News. We have Abey Fonn, who is the president of Impex Records. Scott Hicks, who is the vinyl and analog specialist at Brooks Berdan Ltd. They're upstairs on the 5th floor. And then we have Michael Fremer. Most of you know Michael. He's the publisher, creator of the Analog Planet, as well as the senior editor for the Stereo File.
I have no coupons. I'm cheap.
So if you would like to, with me, join with me and welcome the panelists. We're going to have a great discussion today.
Well, thanks for coming, everybody. My name is Jim, and I'm an analogaholic. And
Hi, Jim.
I last practiced my disease about an hour ago, and I'm proud to be here. We have 44,000 classical LPs for sale in the back. Now that's vinyl. That's vinyl. Why are we here? We're here to talk about vinyl and the world, you know, what's happening with vinyl records. They're back all of a sudden. Some of us don't remember them ever going away. I'll tell you my story real fast. I'm just a record collector. I started buying records as a kid. My very first record I wanted to share with you.
Still have it?
Well, I have 3 versions of it. Just because when I was a kid, my best friend's mother went to work for Frank Zappa as a secretary for 2 weeks. Brought this record home. They did not own a record player. We did. We had a Magnavox console. Wow. This became my first record.
Oh my God, no wonder you're how you are.
And I listened to it over and over and over and over.
And you know all the words to Duke of Prunes?
I do. My children know the words to Duke of Prunes.
Now you're using prunes, so.
Required prunes. So the question is, you know, after all these years, 1982 came along, and we were supposed to, you know, those Rolling Stone CDs were supposed to blow us away, and what happened? They didn't blow me away. Now, I will admit, my first CD player was a Sony Walkman. I plugged it into the back of my stereo, but it didn't blow me away. But my vinyl was still killing me, so I just never put my turntable away. That's what happened to me. But the question is, what is it about listening to a vinyl record that engages you more than listening to any other music format? And I want to put this up here. Let's start with Michael.
Well, first of all, the idea that the only reason why we listen to vinyl, or the only reason why vinyl attracts you, is because you have to have this ritual of taking it out of the jacket and putting it on the turntable and starting it up. And once you've gone through all of that, well, you're going to sit through the whole side. That's not what it's about. It's about the fact that when you put a record on and listen to it, it's, for some reason, for whatever reason, even if it's from a digital file, I find, it has this sense of there's a performance happening in front of you in real time. It's kind of like it's live. And even a guy like T.H.E, who has HD tracks, he says he thinks it's something about when that stylus is going through the record, it's creating a performance right there that eventually becomes this big thing in your speakers. And that sense of a real thing happening is what keeps you wanting to listen. And if you were to put a record on and watch someone, they didn't know they were being watched, and they would stay there and pay attention. If you put the same thing, the same performance on a CD, you'll watch, and after about a minute or two, they'll look for something to do, you know, read a book or something, because it's not enough to keep them fully engaged. Everything, all of us know when you put a record on, you can be fully engaged, not just for one record, but then you know, I'll go downstairs and say to my wife, I'm going to play a record or two and I'll be up. And she goes, oh, sure. And then it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. She goes, you're crazy. I said, no, I'm more relaxed now, and and I'll sleep better for 4 hours than I would had I gone to bed at 11 and slept for 8 hours. That's my answer.
Absolutely. And now I have to follow that up, which should be pretty difficult. You know, for me, I always used to remember jokes. Brooks used to joke around. He'd always say, you know, you're just dragging a rock through plastic. It's not that big of a deal. He would always joke, because we always knew that it was so much more than that. You know, when I come home with a record, my wife knows, okay, my husband needs 45 minutes to himself to go listen to his new record. You know, don't bother him. You know, like Michael said, it's the experience of, you know, having to find the spot, drop the record, you know, sit back, and everything else doesn't matter. You're engaged. It's therapy. It's music.
When I listen sometimes, I find myself doing something that I have recently started calling deep listening. And that's where I'm listening deeply to the music and the performance and the instruments and the different instruments and the space between the instruments. And I find that to be a state close to meditation, and I find it you know, something that's kept me together all my life, you know, whether I knew it or not, slipping into that state of deep listening. And I don't find that state as easily with not a non-analog source. I just don't seem to find that as easy.
I don't find it at all.
I fall asleep.
I don't find it. I just cannot find it.
Yes, I mean, I'm trying to be nice, but
don't be nice. And there's more noise, even though it's not the same noise that you have on a bad record. There's this noise. It's like this white noise that when you listen to CDs, it's there. You don't hear it the same way. Your brain processes it. You don't hear it physically, but you sense it. And then if you listen to that for half an hour, even good digital, and then you put on a record, it's like you can feel what happens to you.
You don't have that interaction. I don't feel that interaction when I'm playing CD.
And it's kids are discovering that now. That's why kids are buying turntables. This has not been given to them for 20 years. They haven't had this. And then when a kid sits down, hears a record for the first time, it's like seeing high definition television for the first time. And that's why they're buying turntables and records.
Absolutely.
I have 5 children at home, and actually I'm lying, I have 2 left at home. And they've been listening to MP3s on earbuds off their computers for all their lives. And anything that Dad does, they're at the age where anything I do is completely uncool. So stereos aren't cool, records aren't cool. But when they walk into my room, they stop in their tracks. They don't even care for the music, but they hear something that speaks to them that they can't ignore, in spite of the fact that everything Dad does is uncool. So they wouldn't notice that.
I just want to say this is Harry Weisfeld's son from VPI, and I've known Matt for years. And about 10 years ago, I know when Matt was in school, and one of his friends would say to him, "What does your father do?" He'd go, "My father, he makes turntables." What's that? It's this stupid thing where you play a record and it's like this old-fashioned stuff. It's
just like that.
Forget about it. And now it's like, what does your father do? My father makes turntables, and I'm doing it too. So.
Exactly, just like that. And it's just funny listening to all this, and this is a last-minute thing, me getting on here, and I leaned over to Michael, I was like, am I allowed to talk? Do I say something? I'm actually a high school teacher now, and I have these kids, 15 to 17-year-old, they're all excited about it. They come up and they ask me, and they try to sound really smart. So, what's the difference between a belt drive and a direct drive, Mr. Weisfeld? Like, do I get a good deal because I'm your student? But they're excited.
So why is that, though? Why are they coming back to vinyl? Why is it?
Because one hears it, then the next hears it. It's like, remember MP3 spread, it was virally in colleges when the college had a T.H.E connection and you could download music, so one could, hey, you can get music for free. So one after the next did that, and then when that finally became too much, now a whole different generation. One guy gets a turntable, and his friend comes in and hears it, goes, wow. And then the next guy gets it, and we don't have to, I mean, it's good that we're doing it, but we don't have to push this that hard because it's happening by itself.
I'm sure Matthew remembers being part of the Napster generation. That
God, yeah.
You know, I mean, it was just people were trading files like constantly. And I always found myself growing up with Brooks and the family and everything. I would find that I liked on MP3 and then I'd chase it down on record. You know, I had to find.
That's what it's good for.
Right.
It's the Evertone sheet of this generation. It's like we used to have the things you pull out of a magazine and play it on your turntable. So now you download the file or you listen to one of the Rhapsody, one of the music services to hear the bare outlines of the music, and then if you like it, you buy the record. So.
But also I think it's a lot of like pride and ownership, because my generation and younger, well, I'll tell you, I'm starting to feel like the old guy, so it's...
You are.
I don't know what they're talking about in my classroom already, I pretend, but, you know, I own this.
You have that record?
Oh, no, I don't. Oh, I'm just saying.
That's just my surprise record.
Oh, my God.
These kids today, you can't...
No. Anyway, they hold something up. They have a record and it's theirs. Pride and ownership. It's not data. It's not, hey guys, want to see my playlist? cares? It's a bunch of names on there. You have a jacket, you have a story, you have the lyrics, and at the end of the day, you walk up, okay, I know you guys all got annoyed with having to carry and everything, but we're not used to that. We're lazy. We like to carry things now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yesterday over at the Vinyl Barn or Ballroom, I was talking to one of the record dealers over there, and he was telling me about this record. I'll show it to you.
You're not going to show that dirty one.
No, I am not.
Show the dirty one.
We all have those. We don't.
This guy goes on and on about this record, about how much it meant to him and his girlfriend, and he's selling it. It's not, and he's telling me how much this record meant to him, and I'm listening to him, and at the end of him telling me, he goes, "Here, I want you to have it." Now, no one's going to do that with a file.
Right.
You can't. It's not going to happen. You're not going to hear.
Download this, baby.
Yeah. You know,
I never give anybody a record. I'm sorry. Can't do it.
I'll work one out of you. I'm going to get one. Anyway, I mean, how can you share that in a digital realm? There's no ownership. It's not that it's ownership, but it doesn't belong to you in a way. You know, it's not part of it's not part of my life. I have 20,000 files on a hard drive, and you know, if half of them went poof, I might not even notice. You know what I mean? For a while.
But even CDs did that. That was the beginning of the end of this, the beginning of the first sense of ownership doesn't matter. When CDs first came out and someone said, well, you're going to replace the record with this plastic thing that has a piece of paper inside that's stapled together and it was like, it was the beginning. So I don't care about that. And no one cares about that. That's why CDs are going away. No one cares. Nobody cares. Who collects CDs with this kind of passion that people put? Nobody.
I can remember having stacks and stacks of CDs on the bookshelf. Nobody went up to them and flipped through them. Because it was all just clear edges with a little bit of writing in color. When people come up to my house and they see all the records in there, the first thing they do is start flipping through records like, oh my God, you have that. Let's hear this one. Let's hear this one. Oh my God, you have that one too.
And you can squeeze more on a shelf, whereas with CDs, it stops when you get a certain number of names. No more room. That's insane.
It goes back to interaction. You don't have that relationship with the CD.
Absolutely.
And it's bad for sound. Whereas records, you have a wall of records. I had an acoustician come to my room to measure it. He said the decay time in my room was perfect. Why? Because there's a wall of records that causes perfect decay. So even if you don't play them, they sound better.
As a matter of fact, you'll see a lot of people walking into record stores right now buying records, and if you happen to ask them, do you own a turntable, they say, not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Come on over here, over this side of the store.
But those people in the record stores are also younger now. You go in there and just, well, my dad, he's getting up there in these years now, and he went to he's vintage. He's like a fine wine. It gets better with age. So, so my dad's in a record store for Record Store Day. You know, we all went out there and supported. And he called me up. I was like, holy crap, I'm the oldest one in here. And I was like, Dad, that's not a surprise to me. But still, that's great.
That's right. No, it's true. It's kids. You go to the record fairs, like the FMU Record Fair in New York every November. It's a great record. It's all kids buying records. It's not older people. But the articles in the paper still say, for the old people that are still playing records, the Times just had an article like that, for the old people still playing records. It's so stupid. They're so ignorant.
He doesn't play records.
So in the room here, are we preaching to the choir, or is there anyone who's considering leaping back into vinyl, and how do we do it, and what should we look for?
The worst thing are the people who got rid of their records and now they want to get back and they have to start from scratch.
Well,
I didn't even say scratch. In the beginning.
I don't expect any of you to admit that. You don't have to. Not
I'm admitting it. I'm on a plight. And you know what's funny? I don't remember what all my records were, but when I see them, I know it. Immediately, I had that. I gotta have it again.
We had $1 for every time somebody said, I used to have this.
I met a guy who sold his whole record collection. He just got rid of them, went into CDs, and then when he realized his mistake 20 years later, he called the guy up who bought his whole collection. And he says, you know those records that I sold you 20 years ago, you still have them? He said, well, I sold off a bunch of the collectibles, but most of them are still there. I'm not into it anymore. You can come take them. And he got all of his records back, except for about 20 or 30 really collectible ones. Yeah, he's a real happy guy now. So if you do sell them to one person. Then 20 years from now, you can maybe get them all back.
So are you buying?
What's that?
Are you buying?
No, I'm set, believe me. I'm at the point of, in all honesty, I'm at the point of when I get new records, this nausea sets in. I'm sorry, but it's true, because I have no room anymore, and it's like, I have to start selling off old records. I have a rule. 30 years I haven't played it, I think I can sell it. But I haven't sold it off yet, but I think I can.
There was a gentleman just behind you first, in the red shirt.
Yeah, I used to have a microacoustic cartridge for my vinyl.
Sure.
In New York, they stopped that as like electric. It had the best tone coming out of it. What do you think of the cartridges nowadays, the moving coil and all the moving magnets? Are the old ones better, like the dead ends, or the new ones now?
You know, they've come a long way. They're tracking different. And what's nice about the new ones, the new cut of the diamond, it's getting a little deeper in the groove and getting past all the stuff that we like to grind into them in the 90s and some people the 70s. But, you know, the new cut...
60s, 50s.
60s, 50s.
40s.
The new diamonds are getting a little deeper and getting past a lot of that surface noise, so a lot of people find them to be instantly better.
I think they're much better. They've learned so much about resonance control and about materials and how to manufacture them. And they've just gotten much better. But they're more complicated and they're more finicky, and you have to set them up right, especially if you buy one that's got one of those severe stylus profiles. If you don't set those up right, you'll get more noise and it'll sound hard and bright, and you've got to set it up correctly. And if you're not comfortable with that, then get something with an easier stylus profile that will play easier. But they track better. Everything about all of this stuff is better than ever. The people that made those records in the 50s and 60s, they didn't even know what they were doing. They had no idea how good the records were that they were making. Now we can hear it.
And the trick too is don't be intimidated. A lot of the guys that are selling you the cartridge would be happy to help you through the process and get the, walk you through it. That's how most of us learned, is sitting over Brooks's shoulder or sitting over the guy that's setting up your table's shoulder and learning what he's doing, and we're happy to help you.
And I'm going to show you in an hour how I do it.
Tom Schnabel.
I have a question. Like, if you buy a Mosaic box set, that's Michael Cascuna, who is the guy who salutes the blue notes and all this stuff and the reissue stuff. You know you're getting it from the original master tape. If you, I just got this.
Sometimes, not always.
This is on Abey's Impex records, and you know this comes from the master tape because she's a perfectionist. And you also have like cool stuff on the back showing, the Columbia, new phonograph system, 58. But also just the feel of this record. I mean, I don't know, you guys,
use tip-on sleeves or tip-on jackets.
Yeah, and it's beautiful because even when the oil crisis in 1973, all of a sudden records got worse because they weren't putting good vinyl in. But anyway, here's my question. If you buy an Impex record, you know you're getting it from the original master tape. I bought some Atlantic stuff off the wall at the new stuff in reissues at with the original covers and stuff at Amoeba. But how do you, how do you know you're getting it from the master tape because they're just schlepping it out with a digital file? And question, if it's mastered, if the LP is mastered from a digital file, which you don't really know unless you know that it's Abey and Impex, does it sound...
How much you pay this guy? There are other labels that are doing it the same way, that are doing it right. There are some labels that are doing it really badly, and I can name names because I don't mind naming names, but I'll wait till you're finished.
But will vinyl sound better even from a digital file than it would on a CD player? And believe me, I'm a vinyl fanatic because that's how it started for me. And the blue notes with the pictures and the personnel and the liner notes and the cover art. I mean, come on. Those are... If
the tape is available, if there's a tape that can be had, and a company doesn't use the tape and uses a digital file, there's really no excuse for that. I think it's ridiculous. But newer recordings that are digitally recorded or DSD recorded and converted to vinyl, like there's that box set that you sold, the Jarvie Beethoven cycle, which was recorded DSD, and the string section demanded it come out on vinyl. So they remixed it to analog tape. They didn't just take the SACDs and make records. They remixed it to analog tape and then made records. And those things I think they sound wonderful. But there are certain labels to stay away from that don't do good work. You want some names?
Yeah.
Okay. In Europe, don't buy Doxy, don't buy ZYX. These are terrible. I think they make them from CDs. Don't buy Vinyl Lovers. The Russian mob is now after me, but don't buy Vinyl Lovers. They're terrible. Four men with beards for a while did good work, but only in the early days, and now they're just doing digital files. Sundays does much of their stuff from digital files. Bob Irwin does get master tapes, but then he masters it to how he likes the EQ to be, and then cuts a digital file, and they use that. So frequently they'll say, mastered from the original analog tape, but what they don't mean that it was cut from the analog tape. They mean they mastered it somehow. But almost anything, you could take a CD that was mastered from the analog tape and make a record out of it and write on the jacket, mastered from the analog tape, but it doesn't mean it was cut from the analog.
How far down the chain?
And also, depending on what generation the master tape, they could be getting a master tape that's the 4th generation, and they can still call it a master tape.
And sometimes that's all that's available. You know, like, I mean, the Steely Dan master tapes are pretty much gone. And so you take the best available tape and you put something out.
Would that be like a safety copy or something like that?
That would be fine if that's what they, you know.
They have that.
Certain things are missing. Certain, you know, like the band's second album, there's no tape. So Highway 61, MoFi has not been able to find the master tape. So, well, we're not going to go there. But so that's why you have to have a list of records where there's no master tape and try to find originals, if that, you know, to get the best sound. So. And UMG's also done very poor work. They're starting to get better now. But they had their Back to Black series when they first came out with those. They were just, you didn't know where they were pressed. You didn't know who was mastering. There's no names on these things. We are entitled to know who cut and from what on every record. And if you can't find out who cut it and from what on a record that they're trying to charge $35 and $40 for, you shouldn't buy it.
Don't buy it.
Don't buy it. Like the Nick Drake at UMG, those are fantastic. They went to John Wood, the original engineer, and they cut from the master tape on Pink Moon, which was available, and that's a wonderful reissue. And Brighter Later, the master tape is gone, so they used a safety copy. But that's good work. Don't reward bad work. And I tell the guys that sell the records online, Elusive Disc and you know, Music Direct, don't sell these records. They're terrible. And, well, people buy them and they like them, but you have a job to do. Your job should be to educate your customer. If they like something that's bad, you have to tell them that they shouldn't like what's bad. Don't sell what's bad. Well, if we don't sell it, the other guy will sell it. Well, how many of you are there? There's 4 of you guys all get together and decide we're not going to sell crap. But they
support
right.
what's legitimate.
But they still do it, and I want to knock them on the head for that. But it's up to you to tell them to stop too.
In the way back?
Yeah, just I've got the disease, and I've been buying vinyl like heroin, like everybody else. And, it is. And
I stopped the heroin and kept the vinyl, but you have a problem with it.
So I pick up a lot of good stuff, a lot of used, a lot of reissue. Been out with Chad's plant up in the United and all that kind of stuff. And occasionally I'll buy something like I bought the She and Him Volume 3 because I kind of like her voice. It sounds so dead. It sounds so bad. And then I bought the Beach Boys' brand new album. It sounded so rich and vivid. Now, why is like a brand new recording that was just done?
That's
crap.
Yeah.
You want to know why? Because first of all, most of those new records you're buying were from digital files, which is not necessarily terrible because there are some good. The whole art of recording has taken a big hit. The studios, everybody thinks that by a microphone and a computer, they're a recording engineer. There's just so much junk out there now, unfortunately. There are some guys doing good work, but there's just a lot of junk. And United is not a great pressing plant either, and their plating facility is terrible. I mean, if Doug Sachs cuts a master and it's got the TML stamp on it, if you see a silvered record, the TML sticks out. If he sends it to United and they played it, you can barely see it. And when that happens, when you play the record's going to sound that way too. And they just don't do good work at United, and they don't care. They don't care. So if you see a U in the middle with a circle around it in the inner groove area, it doesn't mean that the record's kosher. It means it was done at United, and they don't care.
Making good records, it's a process. First of all, it's as good as the source is going to be, and from there, you know, what the mastering, the plating, the pressing, it's a chain. There's really no one aspect that can really affect.
Just quickly, I love Paul Simon's work, and you know, the Graceland, and then Rhythm of the Saints. I think Roy Halley or Roy
Halley is a friend of mine.
Beautiful, beautiful work. Well, the latest one, so Beautiful or So What. I think that was the name of the
Right.
seminar. So I put it on, and it sounded like absolute crap. And so then I thought, well, this must be because they're mastering it for iPods and computers and not for a high-resolution system. Am I?
No, that one actually.
Terrible.
See, I don't.
And it was you know, Phil Ramone. I mean, somebody was like, well,
I don't think that one was terrible because that was a 9624 file, and you could buy, when you buy the record, it has a card in it. You can download the FLAC file at 9624. I don't think it was terrible. It's certainly not as good as Graceland or any of the things that Roy did, because Roy was a genius. And the current engineer is not a genius. And why Paul is not using Roy? Well, Roy doesn't really work. He would do it, I think, if he was called back. But none of these guys, they were doing it on Pro Tools, and I think Pro Tools is, I don't know, who the guys that developed the Pro Tools algorithm, they don't know what cymbals sound like, they don't know what drums sound like. There's no air, everything is dead and mushy for some reason. And, you know, I mean, when I went to an AES with Bob Ludwig, and I had to give him my password to get into the AES. My password was, I hate Pro Tools. And Bob said, I like your password, but he will never say that in public because it's part of what's happening now. It's a terrible system. It's just, but no one's going to use analog, though very few are going to use analog tape. I mean, if you want to hear a great sounding record that just came out, try to find a copy of this. This was done all analog from, on vacuum tube equipment, all tubes, analog, cut from the analog master tape, and it's a tribute to Les Paul, and it sounds so fantastic. You have to like this kind of music. But Keith Richards sings on it, believe it or not, and Eddie Berdan from the Rascals sings on it, and they're all doing the kind of stuff that Les Paul used to do, and it's a wonderful sounding record. You hear that and you'll say, ah, it's possible. Yeah, it's possible, but it doesn't happen that often. I'll shut up now.
Yeah, only gonna talk about having the disease. I've suppressed the disease for a decade. The last time I actively bought records was late 70s. I felt CDs were coming in and albums were going to be lost, and I started buying a lot of stuff. And it's been that long since I've actively bought records. I want to, lately, maybe in the past 2 years, I bought a batch of records from an elder person that was getting rid of some, but I haven't actively bought them. But I want to. I go into a record store, maybe records, and I start to flip and I start trembling, but I don't know what to get. My question is, because of what y'all are talking about in terms of quality, and so my question is, what's the game plan for studying how to learn about this? I just discovered Analogue Planet, believe it or not. But yeah, I need some information to backtrack on what to look for. They talk about vinyl weight and things like that.
You know, the trick is, if you come into a store like ours where we're doing a little bit of multi, we're selling systems and records, and if it's open, bring it by, put it on a system, play it. Ask a question.
See, and that's another thing. I don't have a I have an old PL560 direct drive turntable that's been in storage in Texas for 7 years. I don't have a turntable right now. So that's another thing. I feel that if I get a record, like I got a batch of records now, I bring them in the house and my wife rolls her eyes. You don't even have a turntable. Why are you
She'll never stop doing that. I don't care what you do. After you get your turntable and start playing them, she'll still do that with her eyes. Just ignore it. Take it away.
She likes the music. Just get
I don't have anything to know that if I got something, it's good quality or not.
I sneak about 2/3 of mine in the house just to avoid
Do you need to buy an expensive turntable to enjoy vinyl?
No, not at all.
No, that's what's great about today. You can answer that.
Absolutely. You know, our $445 turntable we sell is our most popular model, and we can make it sound great. And the trick is, too, right out of the box, it's great. And it only gets better, you know. Start with that. Get a better cartridge. Get a better phono stage. Take baby steps all the way up. But, you know, I have so many people that will bring in a broken, you know, 1970s turntable and say, let's fix this one up. So let's push this one to the side. The money that's going to cost to fix that one, it won't sound this good to do that.
That's right.
Are you talking to me?
No.
Because I do intend to fix that turntable or get it upgraded somehow at some point. But I'm on the market for getting a new late model turntable, entry level maybe.
You know, entry level is the greatest place to start.
There are some phenomenal entry-level turntables. There really are.
And technology.
You know, our most popular model is a little Rega RP1 right out of the box. That is a fantastic little turntable. The VPI Traveler is a great turntable. You know, you're getting a real table for
That's right.
an entry-level budget that, you know, does so much. Price range, VPS, $1,300, $1,400.
It's $1,400 for the Traveler in like regular, then $15 for color, then it's $16 with the Grado Gold.
Right.
But also speaking with that, going back to enjoying it at a lower price, I mean, my dad's Harry. He's got a classic 4. He's got all these crazy turntables and everything else. You know, I could go over and listen to that all the time. I've got a Traveler in my apartment. You know, I could steal any one of these crazy turntables wherever I want to. And I have, just to screw with my dad sometimes, but that's another story altogether. But the bottom line is, I go home and I sit down and I listen with my Traveler. Now, granted, you know, I'm in the factory, I'll listen to the other stuff and everything, but if I just want to just relax really quick, if I'm going like high-end, going nuts and everything, then yeah, you know, we'll listen to the Classic 4, the HRX, something like that. But if I just want to like relax, have a drink, have something, whatever, you know, put my Traveler on, go with the music, and it's really nice.
Travel's great. I'm reviewing it now. It's a game changer at that price point. I think. You know, it's made in America. But even like a Project Carbon comes with an Ortofon 2M. It's $400. That's a ridiculously good turntable for $400. The Project Carbon.
The Debut 3 Carbon.
Yeah, it's a fantastic turntable.
And if I could promote my competition just for a second, because people try, no, seriously, these people have, being new, they try to get me in those little traps, like, so, which is the best turntable? What do you think about the competition? And when I hear someone buys a Rega or a Project or a music, whatever, I don't care. That's great. If they get that Rega, they're listening to vinyl. We'll get you later. It's fine. Just get the damn turntable. That's fine.
Yeah, they trade them in and get the Traveler. They trade them in and get the Scoutmaster. You know, go all the way up the line.
Eventually, everyone upgrades to a VP.
That's the problem. You know, if you get started with this, you're finished because you're moving up, and as you move up, you'll hear more from your records that you thought you knew everything that was on it, and more and more. It doesn't stop. I find there's always more stuff to hear on the records.
I work at a radio station, and then there are a lot of DJs there. And of course, they use the Technics SL 1200 Mark II. You know, has a lot of torque, starts up fast. It's fine for DJing. And then I tell them, you know, no direct drive. If you really want to listen to music, you got to have belt drive. So maybe you guys.
No, there are good belt drives now too. There are some good ones.
No, what I'm saying is that direct drive will never.
There's some good direct drives. I mean to say.
Well, not exactly.
Throwing it out there. I mean, my experience from empirical experience is that belt drive completely outperforms even good direct drive. At least it did.
It might outperform good direct drive, but there's a big difference to fantastic direct drive that will blow your skirt out.
Some of them are good and some of them are bad, but like a Brinkman Bardo is a very good sounding direct drive turntable.
For the dollar, is it belt drive or a direct drive? Are you going to get more for your dollar?
Belt drive.
A belt drive.
Yeah,
Belt drive.
a belt drive.
Yes.
Questions primarily for Michael, but I'd like to hear other people's views as well. I mean, you've talked about some people who are doing it wrong, right? I'd certainly like you to name names about the ones that are really doing it right, where with reissue, you can rest assured that they're using the best tapes,
right.
and that they're analog, and you'll cut directly from the
Okay, so Abey's doing it at Impex, Chad's doing it right at Analogue Productions, and Chad only uses master tapes. He's got guys cutting wherever the master tapes are. So if the master tape's in New York, he has it cut at Sterling. If the master tape is in Germany, he has it cut by Will and Mackey, who used to cut, who still does cut some stuff for Speaker's Corner. Speaker's Corner is doing it right. Some of these guys are not using the master tape, they're using a copy. Org is doing it right. Rhino is doing it right now. Rhino started out making terrible records when they got back into this. Cheap Jackets, terrible records. You listen to Love Forever Changes on Rhino that Chris Bellman cut, it's better than the original. That's one of the greatest records ever made in the history of rock and roll, in my opinion, Love Forever Changes, and they did a great job with that. And so Rhino's doing it right, MoFi is doing it right, there's lots of labels doing it right.
Now, I also want to speak to you to speak to the issue of the value of these audiophile reissues, because there are people you see here on the board saying, yeah, these sound okay, but they don't hold a candle to the original pressings, and at least in some of these titles, they're readily available at much lower price used.
Sometimes that's true, because the tape is fresh.
Yeah.
But if the vinyl was pressed in the 70s when they were melting down big pens, the reissue might be better. And it depends on what it is. There's some are better and some are not. A lot of the original Blue Notes, like the Blue Notes that Chad's doing and Music Matters is doing, at 45, they're fantastic. The original Blue Notes, some of them were better, but some of them also were compressed because Rudy Van Gelder had a cut for the kind of people who could afford the turntables that didn't track that well, so he couldn't afford to give the full dynamics, so he would compress them somewhat. But those are all fantastic sounding.
And there are quite a few records that are being reissued that an original in that kind of condition will set you back $300, $400, $500.
That's right.
And do you find things like the weight of the vinyl, the formulation of the vinyl, 45 RPM mastering, do you find that those make enough of a difference, or does it still really come down to the quality of the source tape and the skills of the engineer?
It starts with that. It starts with that, and then it goes to, if it's a badly pressed record, it's going to be noisy, and you're not going to like that. So.
Yeah, just a quick question. A lot of people today are complaining about the $30 price for a reissue. In fact, there's an article in the current Record Collector News. Maybe Abey and everyone can comment on the value that we're getting today for the $30 that we weren't getting previously in terms of the quality of the vinyl and the cut and the jacket and the sleeve, this kind of thing.
Well, records that were $5 back in the 70s is really equivalent to a record that's about $25 in today's market. I think we're getting much more for our money. We have better technology to pull the music. We have better ways of mastering. We have better quality vinyl. Right back in the 70s, there was a lot of lead in the vinyl. Now they're trying to pull the lead. We have healthier vinyl, better sounding vinyl, and we're also putting a lot more detail in our packaging. I think, for the money we're spending, we're getting a lot more for the vinyl today.
People forget that while in the 50s and 60s there were good record sleeves and good records and nice label and everything was good, by the time 68 or 69 happened, the jackets were getting cheaper. They were using those short packs that would come apart on you when you opened them up, and the vinyl got bad. So we've come back to the quality of the 1950s, but it's actually better in a lot of cases.
A lot of the stuff that we're getting that's new now is, for $22 you're getting 180-gram record, you're getting the MP3 download and a CD, $22 with the right sleeve, the right inner sleeve, and things like that.
And the CD makes a great coaster.
Yeah. What's annoying are the people that are jumping on the bandwagon and charging $30 for a bad record.
Yeah.
And there's too much of that. Like I said, we just have to try to stop that.
With this sort of organic increase in interest in vinyl, it's just due course that the labels or whoever can will come in and try to make as much money off of it as possible while taking advantage, whatever. I mean, but there are high quality manufacturers putting out reissues. I mean, Abey's company, that are just works of art. They really are. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to find out, with your publication, can you not use a raise and publish that without dogging somebody that had to get sued?
I could do it without getting sued. I don't know if I could do it without getting beat. You mean like the record stores that are listed in my publication? Come talk to me. All my advertisers are fantastic.
You speak of record stores, and what I'm noticing, like some of them buy new stuff, and they're like saying, "Oh, once you open it up, it's like it was warped. Oh, we won't take it back." There are stores around as soon as I've said to people, "We got to stand up."
Part of the problem is the record companies won't take it back either.
But still, that's still bogus. If I'm coming to you, you're buying from them. That's your problem with them. They're sending you bad stock. If I come to you, guy, hey, I just want to get a good record. I open the thing up. It's like, sorry. That's not right.
Record stores, record store employees, record store owners are meant to be completely insane. They vary from the nicest people you've ever seen in your life to people that, when I was a kid and had long hair, there was a guy who wouldn't let me in his store. And literally would not let me in his store. And 20 years later, I had to go back in and sell him an ad. And I mentioned to him, you wouldn't let me in your store before. And he didn't care. Yes?
Yeah, maybe I can pull a Bob Levy and totally embarrass Tom and say that Tom doesn't just work at a record, at a radio station in LA and say he's probably the finest DJ in LA, if not the country.
Yes.
But like, which leads to my question. Besides Tom's radio show and Michael Fremer's Analogue Planet, and to harken back to this gentleman's question, where do I go to get a list of really great sounding records and great music records without, spending now $30 on a record that I may or may not like?
Back in the magazines still give really great reviews,
Yeah, well, all the audio magazines have.
Sure.
Some don't cover sound, or they have people who write that don't know anything about sound. That happens. But there are some good indications of sound quality.
Trust reliable sources. Absolute sound reading.
Do you guys have a favorite website, or how do you hear about it?
Well, I have to do the listening and write what I hear. I can't rely on anybody else. Because there are some records that get reviewed that get good reviews for sound that are horrible. I mean, really bad. There was one, like there's an Out of the Cool, Gil Evans, that was reviewed in a magazine. I'm not going to mention the name, The Absolute Sound. And this was a record that was put up by a Italian label, and at 45, and someone brought it over to me to give it to me as a present, and I played it, and it was horrible. It bore no resemblance to what the record's supposed to sound like. And so I played for this individual an original Impulse, and then I played for him one that was done for Alto Analogue in the 90s, when the tape was still available, because there was a fire at Universal and no one wants to talk about it. They lost a lot of master tapes, a lot. But there were copies of the masters. And thank God they were saved. And this record, I played for this person, the Alto Analogue, it was cut by Bernie Grumner from the master tape, and it's glorious. And it's actually better than the original. Then I played this one. Let's play this one again. It was compressed, and they played with the EQ, and they tried. I don't know what they were trying to do, but it was cut from a CD for sure, and it got a good review. And so if you get burned once, see who's saying what they said. And no, go ahead. You have to interrupt me because I'll talk otherwise.
Help me out there. I don't want to mention the name of the company.
Oh, come on, mention it.
Maybe I will. Let me talk the first part. Basically, they have this thing called hot stampers.
That's Tom Port. Okay, I'll talk about Tom Port because he hates me. He hates my guts. I don't know why he hates me. I've never said a bad word about Tom, and I still won't. He sits down. There's no such thing as a hot stamper, first of all. That I can tell you. Because I've spoken to mastering engineers and cutting guys and lacquer guys, and there's no such thing as a hot stamper. There are tremendous pressing variations. And if Tom Port wants to sit there with 400 copies of Crosby, Stills, and Nash and listen to all 400 and pick the best one and sell it to you for $400, that's a service that he is offering you. And as long as he's giving you one that really does sound great, and I've listened to many old records, and the difference in the pressing is shocking. So if he's giving you the best one and he's charging $400 and you can afford $400, more power to him. I have nothing against him, despite the fact that he hates my guts. But it's not because it's a mythical hot stamper that someone's saving, and that doesn't exist. But that's a marketing gimmick.
There are entire industries that exist just on hating your guts, Mike.
I know, and I'm happy to have that.
I'd like to answer that gentleman's question in regards to consistency. I mean, I'm speaking from my own label. If you buy from a source that you know, that you trust, whether you like the music or not, like with Impex, our sources are consistent, our sound is consistent, our packaging is consistent. So when you buy a $30 record from me, you know what you're getting. I've set a standard, and that's what you look for. So if you're buying from Chad or from Jim, MoFi, and all, once the system, you know what you're getting. I would be very wary about picking up, records from these fly-by-night companies.
Yep.
That's advertising, original master. There's no definition, original from what. So I say, stick with.
And I've named, and there's another one I can mention. It's a Spanish company that, in fact, Bob Levy played me this record, Dave Brubeck, Columbia, and he took it out and showed it to me. He said, "Oh, this is fantastic." I said, "Bob, that record was never released in stereo. It's a mono tape, and the jacket says E-stereo on it." And they did something to the tape, and they, that company I wouldn't buy any records from.
Barcelona.
Yeah, I wouldn't buy any records because they're full of it. It's nonsense.
There's a gentleman.
Yeah, if you address two different things, number one, intersleeves, rights, paper, poly, whatever. Second thing, record cleaners.
Yeah.
Sure. Record cleaning, there's a lot of different ways to do it, you know, down to it from a $20 brush to a $7,000 Keith Monk thread cleaning machine, you know. It really depends on what you're buying primarily. There's different ways to do it. You know, a brush will always do better than not using anything at all. We prefer the vacuum method where you're getting the record wet, you're cleaning it, you know, you're scrubbing it, you're getting the dirt released, and then you're vacuuming off, it's ready to play. You know, a lot of these other machines that aren't using the vacuum, you're slinging mud around, you know.
I will say the Audio Desk record cleaning machine is, in my opinion, the best record cleaning machine ever made by anybody at any time. And I've never said that about any product. I know, and I spoke to his father about that. I said, you know, I tried that machine. It took records that I've cleaned on every other machine and I've had and scrubbed, and they just were noisy. And I said, that's the way the record is. I put it in that thing and they were quiet. I've never had that experience. And you put a record in, they push a button, and you walk away for 3 minutes. You're not saying, I'm a 60-year-old man scrubbing records. God damn it, this is a waste of time. And I think that's the best machine that I've ever, and I spoke to his father, and his father said, good, I'll get one, I'll learn what they did, I'll back engineer it, I'll make one in America for less. And I hope he does.
Actually, it's almost done.
That said,
you just heard it here first.
That said, the 16.5 is a fantastic machine.
Yes.
And you can spend more for one of those kinds of machines, but I'm not sure you're getting more for your money than that, because I don't want to put fluid in a tank and forget what fluid is in there when I clean a record. I want to put the fluid on for each particular record. 16.5 is the sweet spot in the cleaning machine.
Yes. If you've got 500 records or 1,000 records, you've got quite an investment in those records. It's so worth it to get.
Not only for the records, but for your stylus, for the length, how long your cartridge will last.
Perfect.
Even a spin clean for $80 is a reasonable thing to start with. Better than nothing.
Inner sleeves.
We just have a couple more minutes, so go ahead.
Rice paper.
Yeah, the rice paper, both my sleeves is tough to beat.
Pardon?
You like the heavier?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I've had some success with the vinyl flat.
Yeah, the vinyl flat can work.
Yeah, it's not. No, I don't think so. But it's time consuming.
Yeah,
it
and
really
if
is.
If it's wavy and it's warped, it's not coming back.
Yeah, that's not going to come back. But if it's a mild,
yeah.
There is options though with a turntable. I could speak only for my own line, but like, you know, a periphery ring clamp or something like that. You put it on there. What's that?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go.
The vacuum hold down works well, but if the record's really got, if it's got one of those really bad creases in it where it jumps out, it's nothing you can do.
Excuse me. We've come to the end of the hour, so it's about 5 minutes until Michael delivers his seminar on how to put together a turntable and the stylus and so on. So we've got about 5 minutes. We need to clear the dais. If you'd like to ask any of the presenters or seminar panelists an individual question, please do. There's some extra coupons for Impex records here to get a discount today if you purchase something, as well as Brooks Berdan and the local record shop, Port of Sound. Thank you very much for speaking now.
Sure. Well, he's using that.